We'll summarize the presentation. I'll provide you with some additional resources that you can seek out, and then, as Jeff said, we'll have a question and answer session. And one thing to keep in mind as we do go through this presentation, it is designed around wheelchair basketball, but the concepts can be applied to any sport in any season. So don't just limit yourself to utilizing these for a basketball team. It can be used for quad rugby, it can be used for track and field, it can be used for sit volleyball, whatever sport or season you're engaged in. Objectives. After attending this webinar, you'll have a better understanding of the role planning can play in crafting a successful season. You'll have a better understanding of the benefits of planning as it applies to systematically developing a season plan. You will learn the 4 basic types of plans and the elements of each plan, what knowledge is required to develop each plan, and how to develop each plan. You'll be better prepared to properly organize your team and season for successful and safe competition. You'll be able to identify team and individual goals. You'll be able to better maximize your available time, space, and equipment. And hopefully you'll be able to help minimize discipline problems throughout your practices. Now I'd just like to touch on a few benefits of planning. Planning can help keep your athletes engaged throughout practice. It'll help you teach skills in the appropriate progression. It should help increase your confidence as a coach. 4 types of plans that we're going to discuss are a season plan, a weekly plan, a practice plan, and a game plan. And the first type of plan we're going to look at is the season plan. Okay, why a season plan? A season plan forces you to look at the big picture. You have to consider the season as a whole and how each piece works with the others. A season plan is your roadmap. As you progress through your season, you want to hit milestones. If you have accomplished everything that you intended by your milestone dates, you can move on to the next item. If you have not, you can adjust for areas of need. Now, a season plan does not guarantee success, but it does increase your chances. And this is not only true for your first season, but gradually becomes more significant from season to season as you build on what works and change what doesn't. Now, much of what we're going to discuss today is derived from the American Sport Education Program's course, Coaching Principles, and the textbook, Successful Coaching. In that course, Rainier Martin suggests that prior to developing a season plan, you must ascertain certain information, such as identify the skills your athletes need, know your athletes, analyze your situation, set team and individual goals, establish priorities, and select methods for teaching. Now let's take a look at each one of these areas. There are 6 skill areas that your athletes need to develop, and you as a coach need to be able to identify the essential skills that your athletes will need in each area in order to be successful. And those skill areas are technical skills, tactical skills, physical skills, mental skills, communication skills, and character development. Now we'll take a look at each one of these skill areas. Technical skills are the skills that every player must possess in order to play the sport at the appropriate level of competition. The area of technical skills can be broken down into 2 categories: fundamental and advanced skills. Fundamentals are the foundation on which all other skills are built. Advanced skills build upon the fundamentals and, when mastered, provide more individual and team options during the course of a game. For wheelchair basketball, technical skill areas can include chair skills, ball handling, passing, shooting, fakes, offensive skills, defensive skills, rebounding skills, transitional skills, and communication. The next skill area is tactical skills. Developing tactical skills allows athletes to read the situation and make decisions based on certain cues. Tactical skills can be developed by using a 5-step plan. Step 1, identify the important decisions needed to play the sport. Step 2, determine what knowledge is needed to make a good decision regarding the situation. Step 3, identify the cues that should be recognized and acted upon and help determine a course of action for each cue. The fourth step is to identify the appropriate tactical options, guidelines, or rules your athlete should follow to make the tactical decision. And finally, design at least one practice game that gives your athletes the opportunity to work on reading the situation and selecting the appropriate tactic. Now let's just take a look at an example utilizing this skill development plan. In this example, we're going to talk about point guard positioning at the top of the key when the point guard does not have the ball. As you remember, step 1, identify the important decisions needed to play the sport. And as you can see from the diagram, we have the point guard making a pass out to a screen shooter. And the decision the point guard needs to make: should she stay? Should she create a passing lane? Pick away? Or move in to catch and shoot? Step 2, determine what knowledge is needed to make the decision regarding the situation. Some things that we might want to know are time on the shot clock, skills possessed by the teammate with the ball, skills of the person defending the point guard. Step 3 again, identify the cues that should be recognized and acted upon and help determine a course of action for each cue. The cue that we're going to look at in this example, the point guard positioning when they do not have the ball, is the position of the defender. And the position the defender can take could be a close man-to-man defense. They could be sagging slightly, or they might be sagging to the help position. And based on that positioning, we're going to decide what we want to do as the point guard. And step 4, identify the appropriate tactical option, guideline, or rules your athlete should follow to make the tactical decision. Now in this diagram, you see that the defense at the point is playing a close man-to-man. And if they're playing close man-to-man, the point guard should read that cue and do one of two options. They should either pick away, which you can see the option to the right of the screen, or they should create a passing lane by moving in, getting chair position, and moving out so they can receive a pass with their outside hand. In this example, the defense is sagging slightly, so the decision is to stay. A passing lane is already created. They don't need to do anything to continue ball rotation and give their teammates options. And here the defense is sagging to the help position. They're way down in the middle of the lane, and the point guard should read this cue and act upon it by moving to the free throw line to catch a pass back and shoot. Now we've gone through the first 4 steps. We've identified the cues and the options. And the 5th step again was to design at least one practice game that allows your players to read those cues and make the appropriate decision. And here I've got an example of 2 different drills that you can use. On the left-hand side of the screen, this is a drill that I like to use. It's called 3-on-3 quarter court. And as you can see, part of the court is actually removed from play. You're playing a 3-on-3 game, but instead of using the whole half court, you're only using a quarter of it, which requires the athletes to make decisions in a smaller space. And with that, you can get the point guard to work on creating the passing lane or moving in for the shot. Obviously, they can't pick away. There's no one over there. And that second drill is on the right, where you have 4-on-4, where the 4th person that's added into this drill is a stationary wing. That person cannot move into the basket, cannot score. They're only there to receive a pass or switch with the point guard. So you can work on the point guard reading the cues to pick away. The next skill area that we want to talk about are the physical skills. Now, a community team that practices only 1 or 2 times a week is somewhat limited in what can be directly accomplished in terms of physical skills. With limited practice time, you'll want to develop practices that incorporate physical skill development and provide information that can be used as homework to further develop those skills. And by homework, I mean you'll give your athletes things they can work on their own outside of practice. And the different physical skill areas include flexibility, agility, balance, strength, speed, quickness, power, endurance, and I group nutrition and weight control together. And nutrition is one area where you need to lead by example and can set rules for travel that incorporate good nutritional decisions. Especially with my junior team, when I take them on the road, I have some control over what they can and can't do, and we don't let them drink soda. We limit their sweets, make sure they do eat a breakfast and eat a good breakfast. I think I might have skipped ahead a little bit. Again, with nutrition and weight control, lead by example, set rules for travel, eliminate that soda, limit their sport drinks. A lot of people will just want to drink sport drinks like it's water, and sport drinks have a use, but they should only be used after a continuous hour of exertion. They shouldn't just be used like water. They shouldn't be a replacement for water. No sweets, eat a breakfast, and make good choices for breakfast. The next skill area we want to look at are mental skills. And mental skills are perhaps the most overlooked area of skill development. There are a number of areas that you can address in terms of mental skills. Motivation. When we talk about motivation, a lot of times we're really talking about arousal. And each athlete has his or her own level of optimum arousal. If the arousal is too high, the athlete can become anxious and nervous. If it's too low, they can become bored. You need to spend some time finding your athletes' optimum levels of arousal, because sometimes that great motivational speech before a game or at halftime actually arouses some athletes too much and can decrease their ultimate performance. Concentration. Try to eliminate distractions, especially ones you create from the sideline. Create practice and pregame routines that allow your athletes to get into a rhythm and concentrate on the task at hand. Confidence. Improve your athletes' confidence by constantly catching them doing good. This doesn't mean that you never correct them. You need to correct them, but you need to be even more mindful of pointing out what they're doing well to build their confidence. And it's especially true of the younger athletes. When there is a lot of correcting that needs to be done, you need to make sure that they're confident in trying new things, and you catch them doing that good so they enjoy practice and have fun. Emotional control. This is something that can be practiced by creating game-like situations in practice that elicit emotions, giving players the opportunity to recognize and adjust negative emotions. Now, one thing I really like to do is during a scrimmage is I referee and I really make really bad calls on purpose sometimes. It happens in a game. I don't think any of us as coaches have ever been through a game where we didn't disagree with the referee 50% of the time. The athletes on the court feel the same way, and they react to those bad calls. And that's one of the things that can be really destructive for a team during a game if they're concentrating on the referee and not the task at hand. And you can control that and let them practice that by creating those situations in practice and giving them the opportunity to learn new responses to that stimulus. Next we have relaxation and visualization. And these are two areas that can go hand in hand. Athletes that spend time visualizing positive outcomes and utilizing visualization to calm themselves perform better than those that do not possess those skills. And we're skimming over these areas a little bit, and again, I'm going to give you some additional resources at the end where you can get some more in-depth information on these skill areas. The next skill area is communication skills. While athletes need to learn positive communication skills, this is one area where coaches must be very aware, especially if you're coaching younger athletes. You must be mindful not only of your message, but also your delivery. Kids will often hear your actions before your words. Even while you're on the sideline, you must be mindful of your actions as they communicate to your athletes, and they're open to interpretation of how you feel about them and not necessarily their play. And this is something that took me a long time to really internalize, because when I was a young coach, I'd always say, listen to my message, not my delivery. And that works great, but it works about as well as do as I say and not as I do. You have to be mindful of what you're communicating non-verbally, because kids are going to read that a lot more than what you're actually saying. And the last skill area that we're going to discuss is character development. And when we talk about character development, we're really talking about good sportsmanship. And no matter what age of athlete you're coaching, you have a responsibility to set a good example and teach your athletes good sportsmanship. And components of good sportsmanship include responsibility. Be accountable for your actions and take ownership of your future. Respect. Respect your coach, your teammates, opponents, officials, volunteers, the facility you're in. Just create a general atmosphere of respect. Trustworthiness. Be dependable and honest. Citizenship. Be a good steward of the sport and the movement. Caring. And for this, the way I like to characterize this is, how do your actions impact other people? Don't just try to teach your athletes not just to do what they're going to do, but think about the consequences of their actions and how it does affect the other people on the court, in the stands, their parents, the team they're representing, the organization. And finally, fairness. If you can't win fairly, what's the purpose of competing? Now, by developing good sports, you'll ultimately have a hand in developing good people. Okay, just to summarize the 6 skill areas again, we just went over identifying the skills your athletes need, and now we're going to talk about getting to know your athletes. The more you know about your athletes, the better equipped you will be to coach both the individual and the team. Gone are the days where athletes are required to universally adjust to the coach. Today, coaches must adapt to each individual and keep that athlete's profile in mind each time they interact. At the beginning of each season, I have each player fill out an athlete profile that asks the following questions, and these are questions that I use for my junior teams. What are your other hobbies and interests, of course outside of wheelchair basketball? What is your favorite quote or personal motto? What do you like about wheelchair basketball? What do you dislike about wheelchair basketball? What can the coaches do to help you better enjoy basketball? If you're not already on a varsity team, would you like to develop to that level? Yes, no, and why or why not? What are 3 personal goals that you would like to accomplish this year? What are 3 team goals that you would like to accomplish this year? Three personal goals for next year. 3 team goals for next year. Would you like to compete on a collegiate wheelchair basketball team, and why? Now, I ask these questions and others so that I can get to know my athletes and get answers to the following questions. Why are they playing the sport? You'll coach an athlete that wants to develop into a collegiate player differently, hopefully you'll coach them differently, than an athlete that simply wants to have fun and make new friends. You'll have different expectations and hold them to a higher level and try to get them to a more advanced level than the athlete that's just out there having fun. You definitely want to know what age they are. Looks can be deceiving, and you do need to know what chronological age they are. You want to know their physical, psychological, and social maturity. This helps you set appropriate expectations. You want to know not only their primary, but their secondary disabilities. Secondary disabilities can often affect cognition, attention, or the ability to learn, and need to be known in order to properly coach that individual. You want to know what their playing experience is. This helps you set your baseline for where you can begin with that athlete and where you can realistically go with that individual throughout the season. Present skills goes along with playing experience, and their capabilities or potential. And one comment on expectations. Your athletes will gravitate towards your expectations no matter how high or how low they are. And it's critical that you set appropriate expectations in order to help your athletes develop. Okay. And now we're going to take a look at analyzing your situation. You want to analyze your situation, and you want to know what you have available to you and what your obstacles are going to be and what your resources are going to be. You want to know at the beginning of the season how many practices per week you're going to have, how long each practice can be, what facilities and equipment you have available, how many athletes you'll have, and of course this will fluctuate probably on a weekly basis if you're dealing with a community team, what staff you'll have available, how many competitions you're going to attend, and what funds you have available. By knowing all this information from the get-go, you'll be able to properly plan your entire season and be able to know where you will not be able to go for competition, what kind of practices you're going to be able to plan, and what staff you'll have to help you with those practices, and it gives you a complete picture of what you're going to be able to do throughout that season. Now we're going to take a look at setting team and individual goals. Now, in general, when we talk about goal setting, goals should be SMART. And by SMART, they should be specific. What do you want to happen? Do you want to get faster? Do you want to do down and backs in a certain amount of time? They should be measurable. If you can't measure it, you can't attain it. If you have a goal of being faster, you should set a quantifiable number for that. If they're doing a down and back in 15 seconds, the goal should be to improve that by a second or 2 seconds, whatever is appropriate, but it needs to be measurable. Goals should be achievable. If you set goals that are too far out of your reach, you may lose motivation to continue to strive to reach the goal. You should set goals that you can attain in a reasonable amount of time and then reset that goal as part of a larger goal. Goals should be realistic. Set goals that you have the ability and the resources to attain. Write them down and put them in a place where that you'll see them every day. And goals should be timely. You should set a clear target date for the achievement of the goal. Now, in terms of goal setting, as we get going on and as you're developing season plans, don't get too caught up in making sure that every single goal you have is absolutely measurable. One goal, a very good goal for a season for wheelchair basketball is by the end of the year I want my team to play good man-to-man defense. Well, that is a measurable goal and it can be broken down into little things, but overall that's a good goal to have that doesn't necessarily fit into this criteria, but it's certainly an acceptable goal. And once you determine what you need to achieve, you can determine what skills you need to be developed in order to achieve those goals. Establish priorities. There are never enough hours in a day, and you will need to make some difficult choices in order to prepare your team for competition. And the first thing to determine is what must be taught. Fundamentals and rules are musts. We've all seen the videos of the T-baller hitting the ball and running to third base instead of first. Base your plan in teaching the fundamentals and the rules, and then build from there. Next, determine what should be covered. If you plan properly, make good use of your facility, equipment, volunteers, and staff. And finally, what could be taught if time permits. And determine what could be covered if your team develops ahead of schedule or you are blessed with extra practices. These are special plays that may include last-second shots, out-of-bound plays for specific situations, etc. Don't use precious time on scenarios that may never occur unless you have covered the situations that will occur multiple times every game. And a good example of that is the weekend golfer that goes out to the range and spends all of his time hitting his driver when he's only going to use it 6 times, and he's going to use his putter 40 times in a game. Practice those, spend the majority of your time on those things you're going to do most often throughout a competition. Now we're going to take a look at selecting methods for teaching. There's the traditional method, the games approach, and we're going to talk a little bit about modalities. Let's take a look at each method. We're all familiar with the traditional method. The traditional method typically consists of warm-up, introduce new technical skill, practice that skill through drills, and then scrimmage in hopes to see the technical skill utilized. While the traditional method will always be used to introduce certain skills, especially fundamental skills to younger players, it does have disadvantages when it comes to using it as a universal teaching method. And those disadvantages include an overemphasis on technical skills, an overemphasis on direct instruction. Traditional method tends to be coach-centered. The drills often do not require tactical decisions. And it's hard to come up with drill after drill that keeps all the athletes engaged at all times. The games approach tries to counter the disadvantages of the traditional approach. The games approach does this by being holistic. The games approach tries to teach what the game is about and how to play it. It does require tactical decisions. It's better at keeping all of your athletes engaged. And it simulates game-like scenarios. And the games approach accomplishes this through 3 methods: shaping play, focusing play, and enhancing play. Let's take a look at each one. Shaping play. Redesign the game so that your athletes have the opportunity to practice what is relevant in the game. And I can go back to the 3-on-3 one-quarter court drill. This isolates the competition to a small area and provides the opportunity to practice half-court offensive and defensive principles with a total of 6 players. Focusing play. Focus attention on the key elements of the game that are to be learned during the practice game. With the 3-on-3-quarter court drill, you can focus on either offensive or defensive principles or a specific area of skill, or one or the other, such as the dive and screen. You could practice seals. You could focus on the triple switch, the pick and roll, or point guard reads, all within one drill. Enhancing play. Enhance the play by presenting challenges using handicapping techniques to make close contests and recognize progress. One of the ways you can do this is change the way you score. One of the things I did 2 weeks ago with the junior team is we were working on pick and rolls that day. So we were playing 4-on-4 half court, and they got a point for setting a good pick, and they got another point for executing the roll. One scenario I've used with the adult team is I wanted them to work on ball control and ball movement. So I had the shot clock going, and they actually had to control the ball for 35 seconds before they could even start their offense. And then they get an additional 35 seconds. If the offense could control the ball for 35 seconds, they'd get a point. If the defense created a turnover, they would get a point. This makes the offense concentrate on ball movement and control, and allows the defense to practice jumping passing lanes and playing hard defense without the worry of being scored on. Now I want to talk about modalities for a little bit. No matter what method you use to teach, you need to teach to all the modalities to ensure that your athletes properly learn from the instruction. And by teaching to all the modalities, that means you have to use instruction that's visual, audible, and hands-on. You need to make sure everything that you're teaching, you use all three of those principles with your athletes. And you need to do this because everyone learns through a different method or combination of methods. And if they don't get it through one method, you need to make sure that you try another. And if you can find out how each of your athletes learns best, you're going to be able to teach that modality, and you're going to be a better coach because your athletes are going to learn more quickly and efficiently. All right. Now we've talked about identifying the skills of the athletes, getting to know the athletes, analyzing your situation, setting your goals, establishing your priorities, and selecting your methods for teaching. Now you're ready to put everything together into your season plan. All the hard work is done, and you know what you have to work with. You know your starting point, and you know what your goals are. And you start with your goals, and you work your way backwards. Determine what you need to do in order to achieve your goals. Set your timeline for teaching skills. Build from the fundamentals up. Adhere to your priorities. And this might be the most difficult thing. It's tempting to jump ahead if you have a bad competition or to introduce a new skill before the foundation is built. But the season's long, and the goal should be to play to the best of your abilities at the end of the season. My season plan for my adult team focuses on the fundamentals of half-court offense and defense until November. We don't even introduce transition until our first tournament is over. Now, this could cost us a game or two, but if we're not solid in our half-court, we'll not have the foundation on which to build the transitional game, since the concepts are essentially the same, just expanded to cover the entire court. So once you set your priorities, make sure that you stick to them, even if it might be a little bit difficult or it costs you a game or two early in the season, because your goal should be to have your team peaking at the end of the season. That covers the season plan. Now we're going to talk about a weekly plan. And why a weekly plan? Now, you use a weekly plan if you have more than one practice per week. If you only practice once per week, then your practice plan will then become your weekly plan. Your weekly plan is simply a week-by-week stepping stone to accomplishing the goals of your season plan. Planning your week allows you to tailor your practices to meet your needs, whether they be correcting deficiencies or planning specialized practices to accommodate for travel, competitions, or special events. If you do not practice 5 times per week, you can give individual skills as homework and develop a plan for that skill development, player by player, into your weekly plan. And this is one of the areas where it looks really good on paper, and I think we've probably all done it. The hard part is actually getting those athletes to do something at home. And if you've got younger players, a really good way to do that is when you come up with a plan for work they can do at home, is try to engage one or both of their parents in it so they can work on those things with them and make it fun for the whole family rather than just something that you give to that athlete to do on their own. We want to take a look at the elements of a weekly plan. And as you develop your weekly plan, first take a look at your schedule. How many practices will you have? Will you have any competitions? Will you be part of any special events, such as fundraisers, exhibitions, or scrimmages? Are there any other conflicts with other programs that will take away some of your players? Many of the people that have signed up for this seminar are program people, and you've got more than one thing going on at a time. And you just want to be mindful if you've got multiple opportunities on a practice day to know who's going to go or if it's a practice that you need to cancel, and plan for that so you don't get behind in one area or another. Once you have a handle on your schedule, determine what goals you need to accomplish each week to stay on track to achieve your season goals. Once you determine what you want to accomplish, determine what skills need to be developed to achieve those goals. And once that's done, you're ready to begin your practice plan. The practice plan is where you detail the process by which you're going to achieve your goals for the week and ultimately the season. The practice plan is where you finalize your plan for teaching each skill area and determine how you're going to teach it. The process of developing your practice plan allows you to think about the facility and equipment that you have available and ensure that you're utilizing them to the maximum extent possible. The more equipment you have, the more options you have. By writing down your practice plan, you can ensure that you provide adequate time for warm-up and cool-down and water breaks. Make sure that your athletes actually take in water or sport drink during that water break. Younger athletes especially tend to neglect proper hydration. And when I first started coaching, I first started writing down practice plans. I'd write down my practice plan, but I actually wouldn't have breaks built in. And there were a number of times where I would just forget until one of the athletes would come up to me begging for water or doing the dance. They had to go to the bathroom. So it is important that you actually do put those breaks into your plan. When you put your practice plan to paper, you can check to ensure that you're introducing skills and concepts in a proper sequence and build up from the proper fundamentals. And one thing that's often overlooked in developing a practice plan is the evaluation. Take some time to write down a brief summary of the practice, what worked, what didn't, and what may need reinforcing, and keep your plan for your records. We're going to take a look at an example practice plan in a second. And I try to make notes as I go through the plan on each area that we're doing, so I can just kind of keep a running total. If you wait till the very end to summarize all your thoughts, you're going to forget something. Elements of a written practice plan, and I did put written in there, and I did bold it because it is important to actually create a practice plan on paper, whether you handwrite it or use a computer. And the elements of a practice plan are the date, practice start time, length of practice, practice objectives, equipment, climate conditions for outdoor practices. Now, obviously, we're talking about basketball here, and we typically do not practice outside. But if you do practice outside or you're coaching another sport such as track and field, climate conditions can have an impact on performance, and you do want to be sure to know what the climate conditions are in those cases. You want to have practice activities, and for each one you want to have how long you're going to do that activity, the name of it, a description of the activity, and the key teaching points for each activity. And then again, finally, the evaluation. All right, here's an example practice plan. And as you can see, each of the elements of a proper practice plan is present. I like to break my plan down by minutes and put the total number of minutes in parentheses at certain points so I can do a quick check on time and see if I need to speed up or cut something out for that practice. And that's pretty much happens every single practice, for me anyway. And this template is available in a Word document that I can email you. And if you'd like one, just please indicate that on the survey following the webinar. And this is actually a template from that ASEP course that I mentioned. And the last plan we're going to talk about is a game plan. Developing a game plan allows you to think about what your team needs to do to be successful. It can help you focus your athletes' attention on key elements of the game that will help to make them successful. A game plan allows you to concentrate your efforts on your team's strengths It can also help you exploit your opponent's weaknesses. In your game plan, you can define success in terms of progress and learning and execution, and not by necessarily winning and losing. Youth teams, community teams, the overriding factor needs to be fun. Your athletes need to enjoy the program. And if you only base your success on winning and losing, you could have a hard time keeping all those athletes engaged and coming back. So it's good to try to find ways to gauge your success on their progress. Elements of a game plan. Focus. Focus can be a lot of things for a game plan. It can be the one thing you absolutely need to do to be successful in that game. I often use it to define what I want my team's character to be for that game. Is it going to be effort? Do I want them to push hard all the time? Intelligence, playing smart, team, playing together. You can do whatever you want with that, but you should have a focus for your game plan. Next, you should have objectives and list 2 to 3 goals in each area of offense, defense, and transition. Things that you want to be sure to be able to do and accomplish throughout the game. The game plan can have an area for threats where you can list all of your opposing players. You can note certain things such as their strong hand, their shooting zone, tendencies that they have. You should have an area for special notes, and special notes can include specific information about the opposing team, special plays they might not use, the people who are going to be shooters, if the shot clock is running down. Pretty much anything that doesn't fall into the other 3 areas of the game plan you can put here in your special notes. Now, if you're coaching younger athletes, your game plan should, again, be focused on your team's strengths and what you want to accomplish in terms of gains in learning and execution. As athletes get older, more and more consideration for the other team can be taken into account, and the game plan can be focused on tactics that will improve the chances of winning. Now, this will require scouting the other team and having a significant amount of information on the team and its players. All right, that is the bulk of the presentation. We're going to go through and just summarize what we talked about. Again, we have the 4 types of plans: the season, the weekly, the practice plan, and the game plan. And of course, if you only practice once a week, your practice plan does become your weekly plan. Season plans are the big picture. And to develop a season plan, you must first identify the skills your athletes need, get to know your athletes, analyze your situation, set your team and individual goals, establish your priorities, and select your methods for teaching. Once you've completed those steps, start with your goals and work your way backwards. Determine what you need to do in order to achieve your goals, set your timeline for teaching skills, build from the fundamentals up, and adhere to your priorities. Weekly plans are needed if you have more than 1 practice per week, and they follow your season plan and the sequence and instruction for the sport skills. They adjust for areas of need. Plan for light practices before home games and days off after tournaments. And give individual skills as homework. The elements of a weekly plan: your schedule, taking into account practices, competitions, special events, and other programs. Summary of the goals you want to accomplish that week, and summary of the skills you want to develop that week. The practice plan summarizes what you're going to do on any given day and facilitates the accomplishment of the goals of your weekly and season plans. Allows you to think about what you need to teach and how you want to teach it, and ensures that you're properly utilizing your facility and equipment. Provides for adequate time for warm-up, stretching, water breaks, and cool-down. Helps you to teach skills in a proper sequence, and provides a record of what instruction was given, what worked, and what didn't work. And again, here we have the elements of a written practice plan. And finally we get down to the evaluation. And again, once again, that practice plan template is available. Your game plan allows you to think about what your team needs to do to be successful. Can focus your athletes' attention on key elements of the game that will help make them successful. Concentrate on your team's strengths. Exploit your opponent's weaknesses. And define success in terms of progress in learning and execution, not necessarily winning and losing. And the elements of the game plan, again, are focus, offensive, defensive, and transitional objectives, threats on the other team, and special notes. And proper planning can help keep your athletes engaged throughout practice, provide game-like learning situations, helps you teach skills in a proper progression, maximize your time, space, and equipment, minimize discipline problems, helps you identify team and individual goals that are appropriate, and increases your confidence as a coach. All in all, you can never do too much planning. Now, we're getting near the end here, and I do want to let everyone know that we will be posting this webinar on the website in the near future, along with our first webinar, which was Introduction to Bocce. And I promised you additional resources, and we'll take a look at some of those. Again, a lot of this webinar was pulled from the American Sport Education Program's online course, Coaching Principles, and you can visit them at acep.com. And the textbook for that course is Successful Coaching by Rainier Martins, 3rd edition. Another great resource is the University of Illinois, and their website is listed there, www.disability.uiuc.edu. And the men's head coach, Mike Frogley, is an excellent resource. And they have a wheelchair basketball DVD series out, a 3 DVD series that if you have a wheelchair basketball program, you absolutely should have a copy of this DVD series. It's absolutely phenomenal. It's professionally done, and of course it's done with the coaches and athletes from the University of Illinois, one of the best programs in the country. Another resource is the Paralyzed Veterans of America, and they've got a textbook, Wheelchair Basketball 2nd edition, that has a lot of good information in there. And getting back to the games approach and decision-making skills, another great textbook, Perception, Cognition, and Decision-Making, The Quiet Eye in Action by Joan Vickers. It kind of gets into a lot more detail in decision-making and tactical approach and a little bit of the theory behind that. So that's another excellent resource. And for additional information on rules, equipment, classification, and officiating, you can certainly visit the National Wheelchair Basketball Association's website, www.nwba.org. And now, hopefully if we can figure out on this end, we will take some questions. And hit. Okay, let's see if we can get this going. All right. Okay, bear with us for a second. We're just trying to get all these questions to... At what coaching level do you think this information is designed for, beginning or experienced coaches? That all depends on whether or not they're planning. This is for any coach that, really any level of coach. If you're coaching a youth prep team, which is the 13 and under division, and you're practicing once a week, you should use the information on planning and tailor it to what you need. There's a lot of information presented here, and it was an overview of planning. There's a lot more detail we could go into, but we wanted to provide an overview of what type of planning can be done. I coach 2 junior teams and 2 adult teams, and I pretty much follow this almost to a T. But basically, it's a matter of every coach should be planning to some degree. In each program, each coach is going to have some areas of this where they can use more information than others. So pretty much this can be used up to any level. And I know Mike Frogley fairly well. And when it comes down to a season plan, a weekly plan, and a game, and a practice plan, and a game plan, this is what he does. And he tailors it to his individual needs. And obviously he's been very successful with it. Okay. What level of player is this information directed to? This really isn't so much for a player. This is really for a coach to take out and gets back to getting to know their player and utilize this information to specific players. So this is really for coaches and program administrators. Okay. How do you recommend integrating kids with different kinds of disabilities into basketball? Well, that's a really open-ended question. I've had so many different types of disabilities on basketball teams. It gets back to knowing your athletes and knowing why they want to play and adjusting your coaching to that individual athlete. When I was in the Midwest coaching in Chicago, one of our neighboring teams in Wisconsin had an athlete on that team who, on a daily basis, used a power chair. He had severe CP, and he would come to the games in a power chair. They would transfer him into a ball chair, and he would go out there and have the time of his life. He couldn't score a basket. He probably never got a rebound, but that coach and that program made that a great experience for that athlete. And it's all about catering to the individual and what they want to get out of the program and what you need to do to get your team wrapped around that to help it be a success for everybody. Do you have examples of different drills we can use for developing fundamentals? I do, and when we do the survey, that's one of the questions, and we definitely want to do another webinar on this that gets more into drills and different games that you can use throughout your practices. So the answer to that is yes, and if others of you have that same question, please indicate that in your survey. There's an open-ended question there, and we do plan on developing another webinar to address those questions. Will we be able to request this presentation? Yes, that's also on the survey, so you'll just need to be able to, it's a radio button, just make sure you mark that, and you automatically get the survey as soon as this webinar is over, so just fill that out, and then we'll be able to email that to you. I believe we're going to do it in a PDF format. In a PDF format. We just have one comment about they agree that the resources are good, so make sure you utilize those resources, so thank you for that. How do you keep morale up and players interested when you don't have very many games? That is a great question, because that gets back to knowing what your resources are and what you have to do. And it starts with the coach. You have to, when you're the coach of a program, especially when you're coaching some younger kids, but no matter what age you're coaching, you're the leader. And when you walk into practice, hopefully you're the first one there, again, leading by example. But if when your athletes get there, you're hyped up, you're happy, you're ready to have a productive time, you're happy to be there, you're happy to see them, that gets the ball rolling. Now, it is sport and it is about competition. So even if you're not traveling a lot, you can still find ways to keep the morale up. You can break your team up into mini games. Even if you're dealing with a limited number of athletes, you can bring the parents in if it's younger. If they're adults and you have some extra chairs, you can get friends and family to come. One of the things that's typically very successful is doing exhibition games in your area at high schools, middle schools. So that gives you the opportunity to get out and lets the athletes showcase their skills. I've done I don't know how many high school exhibitions, and I have yet to find a group of students that can get in chairs and be competitive with a wheelchair basketball team. So it's a great way to get out there. The kids have fun, or the adults have fun, because they're showcasing their skills, and the people that are there that they're playing against and watching get a really good appreciation for the skills that they've developed and what those athletes are able to do. All right, let's see for another one here. Here's a good comment. When talking about modalities, it is a great place to suggest to the coaches to contact the local APE or PE teacher to find out how best these players learn. A classroom special ed teacher would also help with this. They're great resources, and it promotes collaboration between school and community. That's an absolutely great comment, because those are the people that are charged with the professional education of these athletes, and it's their job to know how these athletes learn best. So that, and it does just that. It does provide a good collaboration. And if you make those contacts, it may actually help you find some more athletes too. Let's see which one. Just taking a look. I think that looks like it's about it. If anybody has anything else, we'll wait a second here. Trying to, let's see. Put my contact information up here. I think we did we boot out the questions? That's it for the questions. Okay. Everyone, thank you for attending. I'll leave that contact information up there for a minute or for a second. You can also just go to our website, www.blazesports.org, and I think all of our contact information is there. Let's see. We do want to thank you for attending this webinar. You will receive a survey by email as soon as we're done. We would appreciate you spending a few minutes to complete that survey to give us feedback on the webinar so we can improve the future webinars. And as I said, there are some questions in there, so you can, a question if you want the presentation. I believe, did we put one in there for the practice template? You can also receive the practice template by marking it, that survey. If again, my contact information is up there, so if you want any more information on those additional resources, I can get those to you as well. And then finally, getting back to one of the questions, we do intend to do an additional webinar on wheelchair basketball. So please, there is an open-ended question. Ask your questions there about what you would like to see in that, and we'll develop that. There was one comment that one of the attendees did agree that this could be definitely used for any other sport, and the attendee kind of wondered why we only advertise this as wheelchair basketball. You can certainly get this to anyone else. We are going to post this on the website. We recorded this, 99% of it anyway. We missed the first about 30 seconds. But it will be on the website, so what you heard today can be downloaded or viewed as is. And also, we will send a PDF with a PowerPoint out that you can share with anyone you want. All right, Jeff, anything else?
That does it for today. I really want to thank Dan for putting together a great presentation. And again, we really appreciate you filling out the survey. It allows us to improve our seminars, not just another basketball one, but all the seminars we're going to do in the future. Now that you've joined us, you're on our mailing list, you'll get a notification about all of our webinars, and we hope to have one on a monthly basis. Thanks for attending, folks, and we look forward to having your comments.